Sustainability has become a buzzword. It's become the major part of any strategic priority in most major energy companies. But it's not just about becoming sustainable as a company, but it's also becoming sustainable for the communities that you are a part of, to ensure that as a company grows, the communities around it grows.
Hello and welcome to the Strategic Partnerships podcast series. My name is Todd Davey, Associate Partner at UIIN, and I'm your host for today. In today's episode, we have invited Tanya Hughes, the Manager of Capacity Building at Sasol, one of South Africa's leading energy and chemical companies, to discuss just how Sasol partners with universities to drive their innovation agenda, to advance research and develop cutting-edge technologies. Tanya provides insights into how these collaborations benefit both students and industry professionals, fostering a symbiotic relationship that propels the energy sector in South Africa. I have with me today Dr. Tanya Hughes, who's the Manager for Capacity Building at Sasol. She is previously still a research scientist at Sasol, working within the technology group, focusing specifically on sustainability, organic synthesis, as well as process and plant support. Sasol is a global chemical and energy company on the South African Stock Exchange, but formerly Tanya has been a James Moir Medal winner for Best Academic Achiever in chemistry, as well as has done her doctorate at the University of Johannesburg in organic chemistry. So welcome, Tanya.
Thank you for that kind introduction. I have forgotten about the James Moir medal, so thank you for
I think it's a good place to start because I've got an interesting question, which is, how did a high-achieving researcher end up in a corporate entity?
So, Todd, Sasol is, in South Africa especially, we have a very, very strong research and innovation group. We've gone through a couple of iterations of naming conventions. It's been research and development, research and technology, and now currently we are research and innovation. And we pride ourselves in being a very highly competitive company with regards to research. In the beginning, we were at the forefront of technologies within South Africa to produce chemical and energy products. And we are still one of the leading companies within South Africa, and also we have branched out to a lot of countries around the world. So I started off as a scientist, actually as a Sasol bursar. So I had a bursary from Sasol for my master's as well as my PhD, and with a focus on a project that could essentially be leveraged at Sasol and be used at our facilities. I then started as a scientist and worked my way up over a 12-year period within different disciplines and different groups, and realized that I have a passion for university industry engagements. I've got a passion for building and developing other people, and that's where I am now. But in essence, we have a large number of doctorates and masters, both on the engineering and science side, that works within Sasol, not just South Africa based, but also globally. So we are a very, very strong research-focused company.
And is that, just to clarify, is that industry PhDs that are undertaken collaboratively between Sasol and a university, or are they a situation where it's part-time PhD and whilst working at Sasol?
So mostly it is our PhD pipeline that comes from our bursary pipeline. So we give bursaries to both undergraduate as well as postgraduate chemistry, as well as chemical engineering students, and a wide array of others as well. But our focus, especially from an R&I or an research and innovation, is on our chemical engineers and our scientists. So what happens is we fill our pipeline from those bursars, and with natural progression and natural attrition, we sometimes also then fill in that pool from other avenues as well. And that is mostly from our grant holders or our postdocs, where we also have some that we can leverage on that knowledge and pull them into our pipeline. But the majority of our pipeline comes from our bursaries. So from our bursars that then gets absorbed into the company, that forms part of a graduate development program, where they go through developing them into full-fledged scientists or engineers that are then industry-based. So we don't necessarily have PhDs that perform projects that are specifically Sasol related, but we give bursaries to specific skills. So if we require a certain skill set, we will give a bursary, even though that specific PhD is not really performing a project that we can specifically apply at Sasol. The skill set is what we need and what we look at.
Okay, so there's quite a recognition of talent and working together with universities to acquire the next wave of talented researchers to bring into Sasol. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about Sasol and why sustainability matters to it.
Okay, so of course, sustainability is the flavor of the month for all energy and chemicals companies.
For sure.
And
there's a subsequent question coming, by the way.
Exactly. It is important. It's important to remain relevant. It's important to be able to operate within the countries we operate. So a little bit about Sasol is we are a global chemicals and energy company. We have over 70 years of experience in the production and marketing of fuels and chemicals. What makes us different is, and compared to other major companies, is that we don't just produce a fuel pool for the energy market, but we also have a very high footprint in the chemicals market, especially in Europe as well as in North America. Also, we've got a lot of proprietary technology that we then use to diversify our portfolio, and we actually have footprints in markets that people don't even know that you use the Sasol starting material or the Sasol raw product to produce, such as surfactants in washing powders, etc. So we go from all the way from producing the fuel you put in your car to what you wash your clothes with. So we're quite diversified. We also have a global footprint. We are based in over 22 countries with an approximate of about 30,000 employees. So even though we are a global business, we are very strongly rooted in South Africa as we started here, and the biggest part of our operation is managed within South Africa. And why sustainability is important. So I think for all of the companies, we can all agree sustainability has become a buzzword. It's become the major part of any strategic priority in most major energy companies. But it's not just about becoming sustainable as a company, but it's also becoming sustainable for the communities that you are a part of, to ensure that as a company, because as a company grows, the communities around it grows, and that community becomes dependent on that company for secondary and tertiary types of jobs and opportunities. And also the people that work for that company spend their money within those communities. So for us to continue to operate and continue to be visible in our communities, continue to support our communities, we had to change the way we do things and change the way we operate to ensure that we are sustainable for the future and that we remain relevant as a company in the long term. So it is extremely important for us as a company to change the way we do things.
A cynic would say that's what a chemical and energy company would say, is exactly your answer. So I guess what I wanted to understand a little bit more about was why Sasol's program's different. Why is it a serious program? Why is it really trying to tackle in a meaningful way this global problem?
I think it's because we do it in a holistic way, Tots, and that is also the standard question or the standard answer. But we also know we cannot do it by ourselves. So we leverage on our collaborations, on our partnerships, and we also get input from our communities. We don't just say that we need to become sustainable and we don't care about the communities around it. We don't care about who we leave behind. We actually do care quite significantly about the communities, as well as how we upskill our communities to become part of this transition to a more sustainable company. And you cannot change and transform to a different way of working and leave half of your community behind. And I think in South Africa especially, we are very uniquely placed in an environment where the community will also not allow you to forget about them and allow you to ensure that you take them with you on this journey. So I think that is what makes Sasol different. We have to acknowledge our communities. We have to acknowledge the socio-economic impact that we have as a company. And we have to look at that wider holistic view, and also the collaborations or the partnerships we have from an industry academia point of view becomes exceptionally important, because we then can influence the type of research that our academia is doing so that we can leverage from that. Even though we won't necessarily employ all of the students that comes through that type of initiative, we can at least ensure that we upskill enough of them to either become entrepreneurs that add into the Sasol pool, or can then add to the greater South Africa sustainability, and not just from a Sasol point of view. So I think that is what makes us very unique, and what makes our sustainability approach, our programs, because it has very different levels to it and different prongs to it, and there's different people looking after different things. But from an academia industry engagement point of view, we absolutely trying to leverage from the fundamentals that we can gain from our academic partners and then enable the sustainable growth of our company.
Perhaps you could just elaborate a little bit on the vision and aims that Sasol has with their sustainable development goals, especially in relation to collaboration with scientific institutions as well as universities. But then maybe secondly, you can just give us a practical example of how this works rather than staying at a high level.
Of course, we all know that the SDGs are very important, and of those SDGs, so the Sustainable Development Goals, we have prioritized 5 of them. So we looked at all of them and we said, how can we make it practical? How do we make sure that it does not just remain a pie in the sky or this idea? And how do we actually implement it within the company? So we have prioritized 5 of our Sustainable Development Goals, and of them is number 8, 9, 12, 13, and 17. And I don't know if I should name them. I think the audience are quite well versed with the SDGs, but how we categorize them is actually to look at safe and enduring operations. So ensuring that we leave no one behind, we have decent work and economic growth within the countries that we operate, as well as especially with the focus on South Africa due to our socioeconomic environment. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure becomes very important because we have to build resilient infrastructure. We, as a company of over 70 years, a lot of our infrastructure is aging, and we need to ensure that we can prolong their lifetimes in a sustainable way to ensure that we can still give jobs to our children's children, hopefully. And then by responsible consumption and production, so that is to ensure that we minimize our environmental footprint. So how we actively do that is to remain committed to reducing our carbon footprint, reducing our level 3, or you produce, but then others consume, and how we can reduce that in a sustainable way so that our footprint decreases from an environmental perspective. We also have a very how can I put it? It's a realistic but a tough climate change roadmap that we've put forward, where we are actively engaging on how to decarbonize our process. Because let's face it, all energy companies are sitting with the same problem. And especially from a Sasol point of view, because we are a coal-based company, that we get our feedstock is coal, we need to think about how we can change that. And how we are practically doing that is we are actually investing in our students. For 2023, we invested about 74 million rand in bursaries and graduate development programs. We're investing in partnerships with what is called the NRF in South Africa, the National Research Foundation, with the intent to grow the specific themes so that academia don't just go on a tangent and just does research and there's no industry application. So those are some of the practical things that I will actually elaborate on at a later stage. But we have put money where our mouth is, and we are continuing to do that in a sustainable way, but also ensuring that our company, as a company that produces a livestock for over 30,000 people, remains sustainable as well.
In terms of the investment in R&D, specifically the R as much as the D, do you know to what degree or to what percentage of the entire income of the company that you're dedicating there, or do you have some sort of volume? Perhaps you can elaborate a little bit on what makes it a serious investment, but then, as I said, we'll go to a specific example following that.
So I don't have that specific percentage, Todd, but I know we do invest, as just from a research and innovation perspective, we invest over 150 million rand towards our academic partnerships and our investments with the National Research Foundation of South Africa. And as I already mentioned, about a 74 million in bursaries and graduate development programs. And also our research and innovation community is quite extensive within South Africa, but also within our other regions such as North America as well as in Europe. So we do have a very large research footprint, as that enables the Sasol of tomorrow. So research is a very big part of and also extending that research to our academic industry, our academic partners, and our national government partners as well, is very important to sustain that growth and to also ensure that we increase that footprint and that research footprint.
No problems. There's probably a very small subset of the listening population that would like me to keep going in that direction about an energy company and R&D. But actually, what I really wanted to talk about was the program that you have in place, where you work intimately with universities and scientific institutions to advance your sustainable development goals. I think that's the most interesting thing for our audience. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit on how that works, and then perhaps give us a specific example?
Outside of Sasol, we have a couple of initiatives running that is with our academic partners as well as with our public sector, which involves our government sector as well. One of the main drivers of funding in South Africa is the National Research Foundation, and we have partnered with them specifically so that we can reach the wider academic community within South Africa. Due to our history, we have what is called our mainstream universities that produces quality research, and everybody always draws from them. But then we also have smaller institutions, that is our historically disadvantaged institutions, that has smaller communities but is just as efficient, that produces just as amazing research. And what helps is with the National Research Foundation, it widens our scope so that we don't have to go out and shake hands with all of these institutions, but we can actually have this middleman that goes and does that for us. And it increases our footprint in our academic environment and enables us to then reach a larger community. Because as one company, we cannot do it all. We can try, but we definitely cannot do it all. So this is an investment and a partnership, you can call it, that we have to reach our extended academic community. And in this way, we co-fund projects. So we co-fund projects that we then, again, Sasol influences the theme. So for example, green hydrogen is something that is very big and also a hype. So we will then go out on a call and say that we need applications of postdocs or research entities that focuses on green hydrogen, and then we will go through all the applications and then award certain amounts for their funding. And we also it doesn't just stop at a monetary level. We also then provide an advisor from Sasol that would be a subject matter expert that then engages with these individuals, helps them from a technical perspective, guides them a little bit, and if needed, also have the students come and spend some time at the Sasol facility to see how we manage projects, how their project integrates with what we are doing. And as I said, we don't specifically do a Sasol-related project, but the skills and the themes would then be something that Sasol can leverage from.
Something where you're putting out a call through the national body, wading your way through the various applications, but those that are approved are then supported quite heavily. There's a person from Sasol that works quite intimately with these and reaches back into Sasol. Have I understood that correctly?
Yes, that is exactly it. And it's in many different forms. So one of the forms is with the academic, specifically an academic, and they will apply for a specific research project. And within that project, they will then grant bursaries and have postdocs and everything working within that project. They will then be assigned a Sasol advisor that helps from a technical perspective. But where the National Research Foundation then helps us to facilitate all of the admin around it and the payments and checking. And so we actually can stand and only be helpful from a technical perspective. And that gives us a greater reach. So we have this money, and a lot of times people just want the money. They don't want the added influence or and that's also okay. But then we have a certain expectation that a certain research objective is then met. And it helps to have that little bit of a Sasol advisor to help you and see if you are going in the right direction.
And so with that in place, what has been the effect? What sort of things have come out of this sort of a program?
So Todd, we've had amazing success stories up to this point. Initially, when this program started, we had about 26 research grants that were awarded. From that 26 research grants, we already have about 16 bursaries that was then came into the program under the supervision of these academics that forms part of these research grants. We have about 4 postdocs as well. And then the initiatives just keeps on coming. So that was the initial starting point. Then we had another initiative where we had a research chairs. I don't know if that is very popular in the rest of the world, but in South Africa, we have a lot of research chairs, and we are co-funding, at the moment, we are co-funding 4 research chairs in specific themes relating to energy and power modeling systems, as well as green hydrogen. And that enables these research chairs, and the money we give them enables them to then also, again, get postdocs and postgraduates into the system. Because in South Africa, we saw that we struggle to find South African-based postdocs. So most of our South African students would complete their undergraduate or their postgraduate degree and immediately get absorbed into industry. And we need to change that mentality a little bit to think that postdoc is also an option. And it's also good for your career to do a postdoc, whether you remain in academics or whether you choose an industrial path. Doing a postdoc just adds that little bit of extra fat to your resume. Then we've also now recently also added a new initiative. We are calling it the Young Academic Acceleration Program, where we are looking for young academics, because we always get feedback to say that your researchers that have been doing research for years and years, they get all the funding, they get all the opportunities because they are known. And we realize that we need to we need to build a springboard for these young academics to also get into that world and make sure that we don't leave them behind. So we started that initiative, and that call went out. So we are holding thumbs that we got enough applications to award about 13 of those as well. And of course, again, it is a monetary value, but it goes beyond that monetary value into the support you get from a technical perspective, a mentorship, as well as the opportunity to come and explore what Sasol is doing.
To manage this, you're going to have, I would think, quite robust research engagement frameworks. To what degree is the research engagement framework together with the university, or is it through the national body?
So we have, specifically for the NRF, so the National Research Foundation one, we have a specific memorandum of agreement or understanding that we then have with them, and they then have agreements separately with each of the academics. Of course, we help to populate that, and we help to put that together with some intentions or expectations from Sasol side as well. But in also that we have specific research framework agreements in place with most of our local universities, where we then go out and request for contract research. So they will do contract research for us. So we go out and we say, we need speciality or we need expertise in biofeedstock. And the universities will raise their hands and say, we have expertise. So then the university framework agreement helps us to align on what the IP will be for us versus the university, who owns those rights, etc., as well as the confidentiality that goes into it. Because of course, if we now go out on a call, everybody will put their hands up, but it's we need to then make sure that we identify the right places or the right universities at the right time. And then these frameworks allow us to then go and have these discussions with the universities without having a full contract established. So we can have the initial discussions, and then from there we can go out and discuss who owns the IP, who owns what, and do all of the payments. Again, if we go out on contract research and we want to own the IP, we do pay full cost as per the regulations. If we do not own the IP, then we have agreements on who pays for what and what is Sasol's ownership in it, what is the university's ownership in it. So there's different types of research that we would do. We would request, if we want fundamental knowledge, we don't need to own the IP then, but if it's something specific to Sasol, then we would like to retain the IP. But
so that's all pretty much sorted right at the start with the framework agreement. Okay,
Exactly.
Now, Tanya, I'm going to finish off with 2 remaining questions. One is, I'd like you to pick out maybe a favorite project, one that you can recall that you thought was particularly interesting and you like the outcome. And then I'm going to follow up with a subsequent question about thinking about a future scenario, some point in 5-10 years that you think this program and this interaction with universities you've created, what has that resulted in?
So I think there's not really a specific favorite part of it, because I think every initiative that we start, there's a different energy to it, there's a different expectation from it. But I have to say the Young Academic Accelerator Program fills me with a lot of passion, because I know and it gets me very excited because I know that our young academics, because they are not rated academics yet, they do fall behind sometimes. And then they need this springboard to help them get into the research community so that they can become part of the conversations and add to the knowledge that is on the table. So that I do have to say, I'm very excited about that. And I'm looking forward to see the success stories from that and how we then also showcase as a company to the rest of the companies within our Southern African, but also in the rest of the world, of what we can do if we work with our academic partners and how much we can achieve and how much more we can achieve, not just for your own company, but for your country. And I think coming from South Africa, I really do have a passion to see that we as a country succeed. And our capacity building within Sasol is aimed towards that. It's aimed towards not just seeing Sasol succeed in our sustainability frameworks and roadmaps, but to see our country succeed in that. Yes.
Fantastic. So thanks so much for your insights and for the explanation of how Sasol is undertaking its sustainable development journey intimately together with universities and scientific institutions. Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
Thanks, everybody, for your time, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to today's discussion. Follow UIIN on LinkedIn, and if you're enjoying our podcast, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review in your podcast platform of choice to help other people find this content too.